Dave, how does BYU beat St. Mary's tomorrow?
Turnovers. Limit them. That's how they've lost all of their games. BYU has 362 turnovers on the season. That's more than 100 more than St. Mary's. That's the difference between first place and where BYU's at, because when you think of a turnover, you think of a possession.
Yep.
Even this last road trip, BYU went through and they lost to San Francisco and they lose to Santa Clara, and they gave those teams a combined, I believe it is, 34 extra possessions. In games they could have won, but they said, by the way, we're going to try to beat you today, and we're going to give you the ball 34 extra times. How do you beat a team like that? You don't. Even in the Gonzaga game, had one more turnover than Gonzaga, but they lost by 1 point. Trim the turnovers, you win games. So I think against a team that's as defensively minded as St. Mary's, BYU has got to protect the basketball. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that plays into it. And BYU's 340th in the country, bottom 25. 22% of possessions BYU's turning it over. Are you kidding me? 1 out of every 4? That's way too much. Somehow you've got to get to 70, because under Mark Pope, BYU's 75 and 19 when scoring 70 plus, 17 and 16 when scoring sub 70. But getting to 60 is even hard on the St. Mary's team. They allow 57 a game, 5th in the country. Certainly the way they play the game, which is a deliberate offense. Some say slow. I would say deliberate. They're hunting a great shot. They never take a bad shot, even at the end of the shot clock. Metrically, this is the greatest St. Mary's team ever, which is wild to think about. They've been to a Sweet 16. They had the Della Vadova, Jock Lando, Emmett Nar teams that were incredible. We'll talk to Alex Jensen coming up, their play-by-play voice, and break this down. But they don't give it away. They have a 9-game win streak, 5th best in the country. Oh, by the way, the offense is 35th in efficiency. They are 6th in defensive efficiency. They do everything great. And they added the WCC Newcomer of the Year in Aiden Mahaney. He's this freshman from 2 miles away from campus, whose buddy is Randy Bennett's son, who's on the team. He's probably always wanted to be a Gael. You're going to see him. He leads the team at 15 a game. Like, he looks like a freshman that would just be an American Heritage at BYU. Dude can shoot it. They rebound well, which BYU does as well. I think that's going to be important in this game. But that energy and that effort from the Gonzaga game against St. Mary's is going to be needed. It's always a different matchup. BYU matches up better with Gonzaga because they play similar styles. Nobody matches up really well outside of like 90s Princeton teams in Virginia with St. Mary's, because they dictate the pace, they don't turn it over, and they shoot a high percentage. So this is BYU's toughest game of the season to this point. They have not played a team, 1, like this, or 2, as metrically high in net and KenPom as the Gaels. Hopefully BYU can do what I said to somehow compete and or win this game.
They've found a way to do it the last 3 times the Gaels have come here.
That's 4.
That's 4 times. 3 times under Mark Pope. What's maddening about the Cougars and what gives them a fighting chance tomorrow night is, despite the turnovers, then you look at some of the other stats. They lead the league in, they're 3rd in assists, they lead in steals, they lead in blocks. They're 1 and 2 in offensive and defensive rebounds over the course of the season. They're holding teams down, they play defense. They do these things, but they're number 6 in scoring because they give the ball away so much. Limit that, stick to what you do. You stay in the game because of all these things, rebounds and defense, and then you have a fighting chance. And that's why you see Mark Pope on the sideline of these losses, and he's like beside himself or whatever. He knows what he's dealing with. But there's still enough good coming off his team. It's like, you can't give up on these guys. They're in all these games. The only game they haven't been in was Utah Valley.
1 double-digit loss, which is wild. I think about 2 players that I think BYU needs to have big games from. Spencer Johnson has scored 3 points in 49 minutes against St. Mary's. He's certainly capable of scoring 15 to 20 in this game. And then Rudy Williams is an enigma right now. Certainly last week had amazing performances, but they were in they were not completely garbage points, but like BYU was down by enough in these games to where it was like,
just shot every time.
They were catch-up points, if you will. But against Creighton and Utah, and that's why I say the enigma, against Creighton and Utah, he really helped BYU win those games, because off the bench he scored 26 in consecutive Saturdays. So will Quad 1 Rudy show up for BYU, and can Spencer Johnson be a difference maker? Certainly in the post against Mitchell Saxon, who is a talented post for St. Mary's. Foose got to have a good game. He's in a little bit of a lull. He scored 23 points the last 3 games. Dallin Hall is going through that post Mission freshman January Lowell that I mentioned could show up.
Gideon George has been MIA for a month, it feels.
BYU needs him. BYU needs Jackson Robinson to make a couple of threes. I think BYU at home certainly is a different team than on the road. But this is an opportunity here. And hopefully BYU understands what's at stake here is if you can somehow win this game, it really helps you down the stretch. Because what is BYU playing for at this point? Still hoping for the NIT. You'd have to have a nice run at the end of the season. You're also hoping to avoid a Thursday appearance in the WCC tournament for the first time ever. Not be a 7 through 10 seed. 6 or 7 seed is a very realistic situation for BYU potentially right now. And that's not how you want to go out in the WCC.
You know what I'd do if I was the coach, and I'm not? I would start Rudy Williams over Dallin Hall. I
mentioned that this week. Is now the time, Dave.
Dallin's in this freshman wall type thing. BYU falls behind in every game now. And remember, against Gonzaga, they're down by 8. There were a couple of baskets from getting blown out early in that one. You get down by 8 to St. Mary's early, that might be it. But there's been a pattern these last handful of games that we're going to fall behind, and then we're going to charge back. And how are we going to make it close? Rudy Williams is going to shoot all the shots down the stretch. We put the senior back in and say, hey, look, you know, Dallin Hall is the future of the point situation at BYU, no question. Maybe it'd be good now for him to sit back and watch a little bit and the kind of flip-flop roles that they started the season with. Rudy started, Dallin came in. Dallin was a little better controlling the ball, running the offense. You know what? I'd switch him back.
Yeah, earlier this week I said I think now's the time to consider that. So we'll see if BYU does that coming up tomorrow.
Are we sad to see St. Mary's go away? BYU will wrap up the WCC. This is going to be the last time we will ever see the Gaels at the Marriott Center. Randy Bennett doesn't like to leave his own house, let alone bring his team to the Marriott Center for a tough road game. So this is going to be it tomorrow night. Are you sad to see it go?
No, I'm not that sad to see it go. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the vitriol. I've enjoyed the sports hate, not actual hate, as I talked about yesterday on the show. No, because BYU's been building a new house. We're waiting for the construction to be done. We're excited about the quartz countertops and the cabinets in the Big 12. It's going to be an upgrade from a house. Certainly, it's more in a more expensive neighborhood. The mortgage is more expensive. But new neighbors, new situation. I think BYU's ready for this. It's been awesome to get to know Gonzaga and St. Mary's in this way. Other schools in the league, maybe not so much. There have been moments that are like, what was that from BYU and different sports? WCC has been awesome. No disrespect to anybody in that regard. It was a place that BYU needed to be. Yeah. We did not expect BYU to have its main rival as St. Mary's. This has turned into something with Waldo throwing his mouthpiece and the Dell of a dagger and the choke sign from Eric Mika and so on and so forth. Competitive games where both teams are bubblicious type programs with really good coaches in Randy Bennett and Mark Few and Dave Rose and Mark Pope now. It's been fun. But I am too excited about the new neighborhood. I'm too excited about Baylor, Kansas, Houston, Kansas State, who's actually the best team in the league right now in the Big 12. Even Texas Tech, who's 0-7 in league coming into the week. I'm excited about that game because that team's been to a Final Four in the last 6 years. So no, but I will have some good memories from this situation.
BYU lost a lot of momentum when they left the Mountain West Conference. They were a contender in that league year in and year out, and that league had grown to be highly competitive with the clash with San Diego State even towards the end. They lost that momentum going into the WCC, and then they're up against one of the best programs in the country that they beat 3 times in Spokane. More than any team in the league has won in Spokane over the course of BYU's history in the league. But outside of Gonzaga, and the only reason Gonzaga was big is because they're number 1 or number 2. If we were playing an unranked Gonzaga team every year, I don't think we'd care much about that one either.
No, it's because they were competitively good.
And it was like we had to be at our best to even play with them.
Yes.
St.
And
Mary's,
I think they elevated because of BYU in the league.
Yeah.
They should be credited number 1. But I think Jimmer Fredette scared the crap out of Gonzaga in Denver, where they go, oh my gosh, they're going to start taking over this league. And so they elevated.
Yeah, and then BYU hasn't been the same. They had some great players, but haven't had great teams, except for a year or two. But I think we won't miss St. Mary's for a single second. It was a fun game because it was competitive. There are more competitive games coming.
Got a bunch of St. Mary's.
But you know, it's been a fun game. That's it. It's not Wyoming, Colorado State, all those things that we had all those years of heated rivalries for a variety of reasons. So let's enjoy tomorrow night, and then that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, and one more game in Moraga, one more game in Spokane.
Yeah.
And hopefully a couple in Vegas. We'll see. Our question of the day is this. Are you sad to see the rivalry with St. Mary's end? Send in your answers on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Travis_Tingy on Twitter. I recognize they have been good partners in getting us to the big dance, but I'm ready for a rival with a big gym and a national brand. We will find that in the Big 12. For some reason, BYU fans, us, are offended by the idea of a small gym. A small gym doesn't mean the program's small. Duke has a small gym. This just in.
We just play.
Why does that matter so much?
We don't play great in the small gyms, so let's blame the gym.
So we're going to play better in the big gyms just because they're big?
In front, yeah, we're going to go to Kansas. We're going to play better.
So much gym measuring. Continue to weigh in on social media.